And I'm thankful it's Sunday night, and you're joining us here over on the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch channel. That's right, a brand new episode here of Learning the Ropes. I'm XLJ the OG. I'm joined by my brother from another mother, Mr. B-Ro.
Cracking open a cold one.
What?
Let's go, fellas. Let's go.
It's gonna be an awesome night because as you can hear, broken skull, baby. So as you can hear, we are talking all things Survivor Series. Man, I am excited for this episode because I freaking loved Survivor Series growing up as a kid. And we're gonna do a really deep dive into it. We got a lot of ground to cover here. But as always, when we're starting off an episode here of Learning the Ropes, what do we always do? We like to kick it off with a little Plug-a-Palooza.
A little bit of Plug-a-Palooza. And of course, and like you said, we got a lot to cover tonight. So I'm going to try to make these Plug-a-Paloozas as quick as possible. So getting right down to the point, if you have joined us here, you have found us over on the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch channel. We are Learning the Ropes. We are the show where the expert gets taught or teaches the newbie. Not gets taught by the newbie. Well, I guess sometimes I teach you. Sometimes I teach you stuff.
We teach each other.
But more so, he is the professor, XLJ, the OG. And class is now officially in session, and we are sponsored by every Sunday night and 7 other days a week. Wait, that would make 8 days a week, but you guys know what I mean. A rootless coffee. Because you know in DDO that it is a...
Damn!
Whew. You scared me, Ron.
He was late on that one.
I thought Ron was not with us. Yeah. Oh, scared me.
I'm here. I just missed my cue. Damn. Okay. Lay off me.
Okay,
it's cool.
Love you, Ron. I love you, Ron.
It happens to the best of us.
You are my favorite person on this show. Use code Panda Coffee to save 15% off all non-collabs. And let you know a little secret, kids. You can even use that code on the merch. I mean, hey, Christmas is coming. Yes, I'm sure you know a coffee lover out there.
Yeah.
So XLJ, I'm giving you an idea here. Like, I love coffee. You could maybe get me some rootless coffee for Christmas.
Hey, you have some in the background. I mean, do you? Unless I guess I could always get you more. So.
Oh, you can never have enough coffee, especially rootless coffee.
And B, as David LaGreca would say, lack of funza. But that's another story for another time.
Yeah, another story another time. Also, speaking of lack of funza, if you have not subscribed to the Panda Wrestling Company channel already, let me let you in on a little secret, kiddos. You probably have Amazon Prime, don't you? You probably definitely have it with this holiday season coming up. Well, did you know in DDO that you can actually subscribe to the Twitch channel for free? Free.
What?
I said free. All you have to do is click that link that we just put in the comments. It will literally tell you step by step how to subscribe through your Amazon Prime subscription. If I can figure it out, you can figure it out.
Because there's more to Prime. Seriously.
I mean, and then as we continue going with our Plug-a-Palooza here, speaking of Christmas, it's coming up. People are going to need gifts. Why not get them a We Are Wrestle Talk shirt or a Learning the Ropes shirt over there? Not inspired by FTR at all. Just kidding. We love FTR. They are the best tag team going right now. I said it.
Wow. Yeah.
Come at me.
Wrong.
Come at me. All right. So, and then last but certainly not least, we have to talk about what we have coming up on Cole TV this week. XLJ, fill us in real quick.
We got a fun week in store for you. A big wrestling-related week, too, as far as what's all going to be on our channel. And it all starts this Wednesday. And this is really exciting. We are going to be posting our SmackDown Live vlog. That's right, Mr. B-Roll and I had the pleasure of attending SmackDown Live in Indianapolis this past Friday night. So our vlog will be up regarding that. You're going to want to check it out. We had a really good time, and got a fun story behind that, which we'll talk about here in a minute.
Yes,
And
yes,
then,
indeed.
yeah, and then on Thursday will be a replay of this show, of course. And on Friday, it's going to be our full gear prediction show. It's been a minute since we've done one of these, so we are going to be putting up our full gear prediction show of who we think is going to be the big winners, the big losers of full gear, which is crazy to say is 6 days from now. Can you believe it? We're less than a week away. So,
Man, I mean, like we were talking about like this, we got to get these episodes in because we want to get these done before Survivor Series. Then you also have Full Gear around the corner. What a time to
hey,
be alive. What a time to be a wrestling fan.
yeah, just come off of NWA Hard Times and your new NWA champion, Tyrus. I know there's some people out there who aren't too big fans of that, but it is what it is. So,
I have zero feelings about it because I know nothing about him. So there you go.
okay. Well, hey, I said I had a story about SmackDown Live, and you guys are going to see this in the vlog. It's pretty cool. So we got there, and we got our seats, and our seats they were up in the nosebleeds, but they were still a pretty decent few. But lo and behold, you got to know some people to know some people. Got a message from a good buddy of ours, and we ended up going from from the outhouse to the penthouse, so to speak, as we ended up sitting on the floor, fourth row, baby, because that's how we roll. But that being said, that actually the friend who helped us out is our guest tonight. Isn't that right, Mr. B-Roll?
That is true. And without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on the real MVP on because he hooked his brothers up from, and honestly, and I even told this to his face, he probably saved my life that night because I am
You were
very
scared.
clumsy and I probably would have fell off the balcony. It's factual. It's factual.
It's
Let's
true.
go ahead and bring him on without further ado. Bryan Asbury from Developmentally Speaking.
Gentlemen, how are you?
We are doing awesome. How are you, good sir?
Good. Can't complain. Thank you for having me on today.
No, we're glad to have you. We got an awesome show planned here. Um, and thank you again for hooking us up Friday night with the tickets, my friend.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all.
Yeah,
No, go ahead.
it was a fun experience. Mr. B Roll's first WWE event, and I hadn't been to one in 15 years. So yeah, it was an interesting night.
Love that I can help in any way. I remember years ago when I first started doing my journey into wrestling. You got to build those relationships and those friendships, and mine have started to pay off. So it was nice to be able to pay it forward and bring you guys down all the way down to the floor there.
Yeah, and speaking of those relationships and stuff, before we get too far here in Survivor Series, I want to kind of talk about that and kind of plug you guys because you've got some awesome stuff going on over on your YouTube channel because you've got now
Thank you.
3 shows going on there. Let's see, Mondays is Developmentally Speaking, which was your kind of the show that started it all. And I think
Mm-hmm.
your concept's super cool because it's talking about the developmental system, especially with Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Mm-hmm. So there was not a podcast at all. So outside, so where we're from is Seymour, Indiana, and we grew up on Ohio Valley Wrestling, like you said. Now until YouTube started to grow, nobody really outside of Kentuckiana knew what Ohio Valley Wrestling was, or if you were in Cincinnati, you knew what HWA, Atlanta, Deep South, FCW, and Tampa. So we got to see the developmental system grow and expand. So, for those of you that don't know what the developmental system is, so say when John Cena got signed, he got shipped down to Louisville, Kentucky, trained under the great Rip Rogers, and before he was a multi-millionaire, he was coming to our Oktoberfest, walking our streets and doing little shows in the high school, and to get that atmosphere, to be able to work in front of a live crowd. And a lot of the time in this specific era, you would see all these people Nick Dinsmore, the Bashams, Rob Conway. They would be down in developmental for years, and then there was a certain person in charge of developmental, and he would let them have a cup of coffee on the main event, and then he would release them. I always felt like their careers were not defined, by the 2 to 4 years that they had, because that was about the average was about 2 years, and this was the era of if you're a tag team, you're getting the tag straps, you're going to be up there for 2 years, and then you're released. So I wanted to go back and help tell these people's stories because there's a lot of hard work that goes into wrestling. It's not an easy thing. It's not even if you know people, there's no guarantees in anything. So I just wanted to help tell those stories. And it took off a lot quicker than what I thought it was. Well, I anticipated it to do so, and then people started reaching out to us, like Doug Basham, and then Rico called us after Squared Circle Expo this year, and it's amazing because anything you do, there's that doubt in the back of your mind, like, there's one person watching, there's two, and it just grew and it grew and it grew, and I think I tried to do it justice and tell these people's stories. Because a lot of people can be jaded. I probably back then I probably would have been too if I busted my butt, and then 2 years later, you got to go stock shelves somewhere because some guy didn't like you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it grew and it's growing, and now like you said, there's a lot of stuff coming with Developmentally Speaking. There's a lot of more interviews. I try to do it's getting really busy, and I try to get tell it chronologically, but it's kind of hard to track some of these people down. Like Sylvester Turkaya had to call a car dealership in Pennsylvania. Bill Burchell, I had to find out where he was.
Is he a car salesman now?
He is.
That's awesome.
And it's just it's very humbling that they're like, okay, yes, let's talk. And then they're very open and honest. And I try not to dig for heat or dirt because that's what a lot of these podcasts will do is they just want to know, why were you and John Cena fighting? That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to tell you your story.
Yeah.
So let's talk,
It's a great, and it's a great concept you guys got too, and it's just so cool. Like you said, in the area that we're at, we're very fortunate to where you guys can follow through with that, and get all of those people on and stuff. I also think it's cool what you're doing with Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. You got that on. That's on every Wednesday, right?
Yes, and Glow was a challenge at first because the Glow's been off for over 30 years. So trying to find these people it's really hard. And unfortunately, we kicked it off strong. And like you got to know people, like you said. That's growing very fast. And I'm lining those interviews up. We just did a show with Hollywood in Fort Wayne. And, she helped us get in contact with some more Glow ladies. And then I'll speak on this publicly for the first time. WOW, Women of Wrestling. I'm talking to them. For those people
awesome.
that don't know that, WOW is owned by the Los Angeles Lakers owner. And so we've been in some communication, not me and her personally, but, the guy that runs it. And
awesome.
I think we're going to continue Glow and then shift into WOW and then women's wrestling just to shed a whole spotlight on it as a whole.
That's so cool, man. Yeah, and WOW's got a good history there too. I mean, not only with what they're doing now, but even back in the day, back in the 2000s and stuff.
Oh yeah, and I'm trying to get everybody from behind the scenes to the competitors, everyone, because everybody has a story and it deserves to be told.
Heck yeah, I couldn't agree more.
It's fun. I'll give you that.
But yeah, you guys are kicking butt. Seriously, y'all, if you're not doing it, go over and follow them on their YouTube channel. They also have a TikTok too. We'll leave some links here in the comments, right, Mr. B-Roll? He's doing it now. That's his typing.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's get right into the topic at hand, Survivor Series, which is shockingly to some people may not know this. It's the second oldest WWE pay-per-view. And that's right, I said pay-per-view, not premium live event, damn it. It's always going to be a pay-per-view to me. But it's crazy to think that this is the second longest running show. And I think with its original inception, and that's what we're going to be talking about a lot tonight, is the fact that with the original concept of it is what I love so much about Survivor Series, with the 5-on-5 team concept. Now, Mr. B-Roll, I'm going to teach you like a great history lesson here, my friend. This is really interesting about the very first Survivor Series. So the very first one was 1987, right? And when that happened, what happened was when they decided to do it is at the time they had just come off WrestleMania 3, one of the biggest events of all time, right? Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. So it was like, okay, we've got to do a rematch of some sorts, or at least them touching. So what they decided to do is they were going to run this show on Thanksgiving night, because back in the day, Survivor Series used to be run on Thanksgiving night and then Thanksgiving Eve. But here's the really interesting thing for you, Mr. B-Roll. So that actually, back in the day, originally Thanksgiving night was always reserved for Starrcade. And Starrcade was like the biggest event of the year for NWA/WCW. Well, they ended up running the exact same night as Starrcade. So Starrcade 87 happened the same night as Survivor Series 87, right? And essentially, WWE said, you're either going to run our show, or you're going to if you choose to run Starrcade, then we're not going to let you air WrestleMania 4 next year. So all these cable providers was like, no, we're not, we want WrestleMania. We want those buy rates. So pretty much, and kind of a dick move, like Survivor Series just took over Thanksgiving night. And it was like kind of one of the first real, shots fired, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Vince has always been like that in that regard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it's really, I love, like I say, just the concept of Survivor Series, but it's just very fascinating to me how that very first one come about. But I will say this, if you're comparing apples to oranges, Starrcade 87 was an okay pay-per-view, but I wasn't too big on the whole Ronnie Garvin, Ric Flair, main event. I don't know. That's just me, but... Anyways, we're not talking Starrcade, but I can tell you this, here in about a month, we are going to be talking about Starrcade. But that's another story for another side.
A little bit of a teaser there. There you go.
There you go. So we're just going to go through the history of Survivor Series, and of course, we're starting off with the first one, so we'll just kind of run down the card. Now, like I say, originally the concept, it was 5-on-5 elimination matches. So this particular pay-per-view, you had only 4 matches on the card, but the matches were a pretty long length. So let's kick it off here. Your very first Survivor Series elimination matchup. Listen to this team, Mr. B-Roll. Team captain, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Along with Ricky, the Dragon Steamboat. And let me just say this, what I find fascinating about this is literally they were in a blood feud 6 months beforehand, and now they're teammates, but... Hey, this is the world of wrestling we're talking about, right? So, they're teaming up with Brutus, the Barber Beefcake, Hacksaw, Jim Duggan, and their partner, Jake the Snake Roberts. What a fivesome there, huh?
Oh, yeah.
And they're going up against Team Captain, the Honky Tonk Man, the Intercontinental Champion at the time, along with his partner, Ron Bass, the Outlaw Ron Bass, Hercules, the Mighty Hercules, King Harley Race, and Dangerous Danny Davis. So I don't know, that the babyface team's freaking loaded. I know against the heels here, but it's just kind of I don't know. But it was yeah, there's still it is what it is. So, but that was your opener. Now this is going to fascinate you, B-Roll. The second match on the night was a women's Survivor Series matchup. And they really didn't have like a huge roster of women back then. What I remember mostly about this matchup, it was really they brought in the Jumping Bomb Angels from over in Japan. They were really like pushing them, and it was like they were bringing them to go in and feud against the Glamour Girls, who, believe it or not, back in the day, they actually did have WWF Women's Tag Team titles. I bet you didn't know that, Mr. B-Roll.
No, you need to do that as one of like your BS facts of the day.
Well, yeah, we could do that. So pretty much ended up you have on one team the babyface team's Fabulous Moolah with the Jumping Bomb Angels, Rockin' Robin, and Velvet McIntyre. And they're going up against the team led by Sensational Sherry, the Glamour Girls, Dawn Marie, not to be confused with ECW's Dawn Marie, and Donna Cristinello. And there's your tag teams. Now, right after that, this is an interesting one. You had a 5-on-5 team Survivor Series elimination matchup. And this was actually where all the teams are involved. So really, you've got 10 on 10 in the Survivor Series. So here's your teams. You got your babyface teams. You got the British Bulldog. Well, actually, the captains were the Strike Force, Rick Martel and Tito Santana, your tag champions. Teaming up with the Fabulous Rougeos, the Killer Bees, and the British Bulldogs, and the Young Stallions. Oh, the Young Stallions. And they're going up against the team led by the Hart Foundation. And they're teaming up with the Bolsheviks, Demolition, the Islanders, and the new Dream Team, which was Greg Valentine and Dino Bravo. So there you go. And ultimately, the Killer Bees and the Young Stallions end up being the survivors in that matchup. And that matchup, believe it or not, went a whopping 37 minutes, which I know that doesn't sound like a lot now, but back in the day, that was a lot. But then again, you've only got one other match after that. So, but let's get on to your main event. And in your main event, you've got your Hulk Hogan's team against Andre the Giant's team. Now, there you have Hulk Hogan teaming up with Bam Bam Bigelow, along with Kim Patera, along with Paul Orndorff. And originally, it was actually supposed to be superstar Billy Graham. However, Billy Graham did get injured in his comeback, and it ended up being replaced by The Rock. And not The Rock you're thinking of, sir. The Rock, Don Morocco. See what I did there? And I just saw Lord Mannix. Yeah, Rockin' Robin was pretty hot back in the day. Not going to lie.
She'll be on the show soon.
Is she? I was going to ask you that. Nice. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry. Now I'm thinking Rockin' Robin. But anyway, so going up against Andre the Giant.
Who is Rockin' Robin's brother?
That actually they had. Was it on Wrecking Crew or no? It was Wrestle Talk Wolfpack. They had an interview with his brother with Sam Houston. Along with Jake, and of course Jake the Snake, the other, yeah. But yeah, it was pretty cool. They actually here on Panda Wrestling Company channel, they had an interview with Sam Houston. So, but yes, so back to Andre's team. So you have Andre the Giant, King Kong Bundy, One Man Gang. It's a lot of meat right there, man. Throw in Ravishing Rick Rude and Butch Reed. Now, here's what's interesting about this. Was the finish of this, because you think it's going to come down to Hulk Hogan winning or going over, but believe it or not, Hulk Hogan was counted out, but he wasn't the last person eliminated on his team. It actually left Bam Bam Bigelow by himself to go up against Andre, One Man Gang, and King Kong Bundy. But ultimately, Andre did end up beating him and surviving.
You're telling me Hulk Hogan didn't want to get pinned?
He's like, all right, brother, I'm not going to do the job, but I'll get counted out. I'll look weak if I do. Yeah. So,
brother.
Yeah. So that was pretty much your first Survivor Series, and that would kind of lead into Saturday night's main event, where there would be the rematch for the WWF title with Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. So
And do
yeah,
you know where that was at?
that was in our neck of the woods here in
Mm-hmm.
Indianapolis, Market Square Arena, baby. I was still too young to even try I will say this when I was a little kid I did try to coerce my parents into going to WrestleMania 8 because I was old enough, but it just didn't work, but it's all good.
Didn't one of
I
the
just want to
guys?
say, sorry, go ahead.
No.
No, you got it.
Well, Bam Bam Bigelow is very underrated.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, so much so. And
I love Bam Bam.
I think people forget he had a run in the Federation in the 80s too. And I
Mm-hmm.
think people forget okay, he was a babyface, he come in. He actually had a manager, Oliver Humperdinck was his manager,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just yeah, he wasn't there for a huge period of time, but he was there in the Federation. So,
That
yeah.
big man can move.
Oh my god, one of my all-time
Mhm.
favorite big man. The guy
Yes.
him, Fader, and Yokozuna I think are the three most agile big men of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right,
But
Miss. Oh,
I was gonna say, didn't the guy behind us at SmackDown in our original seats before we got down to the floor, didn't he say something about being at
he
old?
so he said the first show he ever went to was at Market Square Arena, but it was a WCW house show, and on it was
Gotcha.
Hulk Hogan against Lex Luger. So yeah, yep, interesting stuff. Yeah, but Market Square Arena, man, so many good memories there. Saw my
Mm-hmm.
first wrestling show there. In Your House, Buried Alive. Saw some great Pacer games back when the Pacers were good. Good
Hmm.
times. Disney on Ice as a little young man with Pinocchio, or as I like to call him as a little child, Noki Nose. But hey, that's another story for another time.
Speaking of December 10th, though, we're going to that dinosaur show, right?
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, I want to see Jurassic Park live. I'm there, dude. Take my money. Oh man. So let's go Survivor Series 88. Now, the difference on this one is this is the year where they did co-captains. So before it was just one captain, but and I believe this is the only year they did that where they had co-captains of the team. Still 5-on-5 matches, and you still have just 4 matches on the card. So let's start it off here. You have the opening contest is your babyface team is your co-captains, the Ultimate Warrior, along with co-captain Brutus Beefcake, and they're teaming up with Sam Houston, Jumpin' Jim Brunsell, and the Blue Blazer, who you may know, Mr. B-Roll, as Owen Hart. And they're going up against the heel team of co-captains, the Honky Tonk Man, along with the Outlaw Ron Bass, Danny Davis, Greg the Hammer Valentine, and Bad News Brown. And one thing I remember a lot about this one was kind of that rivalry between Ron Bass and Brutus Beefcake. And I just remember, because Beefcake was actually supposed to wrestle Honky Tonk Man at SummerSlam that year, and I think he was supposed to go over actually, but he had an injury or something. So they did a storyline where Ron Bass just pretty much because he's got a cowboy gimmick, right? So he
Mm-hmm.
pretty much took his branding iron and branded Beefcake and stuff and caused him I just remember them showing highlights of it on WWF television, and it was just they were censoring it out because it was so brutal. Just thinking about that as a kid, I was like, oh no, poor Beefcake. But which that just sounded weird just saying that out loud. But anyways,
You know. Hey, it's
it,
wrestling. It's wrestling.
it's
I mean,
wrestling.
it's
That's right.
wrestling. We can get by with this kind of stuff. It's okay to scissor your friend. It's we get by with this kind of stuff, and if you're not a fan, you're not going to get it. So there you go.
Because we like seeing big meaty men beat up on big meaty men.
Big meaty men
True.
slapping meat.
That's true. That's true.
That's where I'm most comfortable at, is right in a room full of half naked men,
How could you not love it? So
Exactly.
so the match after that I find was a very interesting one because now we go into now a 5-on-5 team. So we've got back to 10-on-10, so 20 guys involved at the same time. So here's your babyface team. Your co-captains, the Powers of Pain, the Warlord and the Barbarian. And listen to this tag teams that you have on this team. You do have the Young Stallions. But listen to this lineup: the Rockers, the British Bulldogs, and the Hart Foundation. It's like freaking like a who's who of like great tag teams of that
Oh, yeah.
era and in the '90s too. So just an incredible lineup there, and they're going up against a team led by co-captains Demolition, along with the Brainbusters, the Fabulous Rougeos, the Bolsheviks, and probably one of my all-time favorite tag teams, Los Conquistadors. Oh, what a just their gimmick! Just seeing them come out like in full body gold costumes and the mask and stuff. Oh man, good times, good times. But I want to tell you, this is what's interesting about this matchup. A lot of people talk about, like the WrestleMania 13, the heel change, babyface heel change with Stone Cold and Bret Hart. There was actually a big heel change here at the time because you ended up having the Powers of Pain would win this matchup, and the Powers of Pain would win it due to Mr. Fuji, who was the manager of Demolition. So Mr. Fuji kind of jumped ship and joined up with the Powers of Pain, and the Powers of Pain ended up becoming the heels, and Demolition ended up becoming baby faces. So just an interesting little tidbit there.
The more you know.
The more you know.
And there's so
Uh,
much to know when it comes to the world of wrestling.
oh yeah, yeah, and I mean
And I have so much to learn still.
hey,
Lots.
and we forgot to mention this earlier. Congratulations to your 1 year anniversary. You just recently celebrated your 1 year of watching wrestling, and look
Thank
at you.
you.
Look, you've been to
Thank-
shows from WWE, AEW, GCW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling within a year. Now
Yeah,
you've got a
it's
show here.
it's almost like I've completed the Infinity Gauntlet of wrestling promotions.
Yeah, you just got to get the NWA in there, maybe MLW, and you'll be set.
NWA
uh,
should be coming around sometime soon.
yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking
Are
too.
they really? We will have to know.
Yeah,
Do you have an
yeah.
NWA superstar that lives in town?
And wait a minute, I got to think on that one myself. Who? Oh, wait a minute, Brit? No, who lives in town? You'll have to tell me after show or something if you don't want to name drop him here.
Oh yeah, no, he's the tag team champion now, currently.
They live in or they live in Seymour.
Jay Bradley.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Huh?
he's a cop in town.
I'll be darned. I didn't know he lived here. Oh, that's pretty
There you
cool.
go.
We got a tag team champion in our neck of the woods. What? What? That's awesome. I can get behind that. Um, so two more matches on this card. You got co-captains Andre the Giant and Dino Bravo teaming up with Ravishing Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, and Harley Race. And they're going up against co-captains Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Jake the Snake Roberts, Kim Patera, Tito Santana, and how about this name drop, Scott Casey, who was like you saw him on some TV here and there, but never on a pay-per-view. But hey, he was on this Survivor Series team. Um, and the heel team did end up picking up the win there. And then your main event. You've got the Mega Powers, brother. Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man. And on their team, you have Hercules, who have recently just turned babyface, Coco Beware, and Hillbilly Jim. And they're going up against the team of the Twin Towers, Akeem and the Big Boss Man, along with Ted DiBiase, the Red Rooster, and the recently acquainted or King Haku there. So, and of course, the Mega Powers would pick up the win there. So, there you go. And what is up, Coupe de Phil? How are you, good sir? So yeah, there you go with your 1988 Survivor Series. Now, 1989 kind of holds a special place in my heart. It's probably one of my favorite ones, and one of the reasons I loved it so much, you kind of saw that intro at the beginning of our show. That's actually where that intro come from the '89 Survivor Series. And one of the things I loved about it was I loved that the teams had names, and it's like I wish they would
Yes.
have stayed with that concept
Yes.
throughout the rest of them. It's like, damn it, they only did it like '89, '90, and '94, '93, and '94, I believe. So, well, in '95 too, there's some teams names, but still, though, I love the concept of them having the team names. So, Survivor Series '89. Let's get right into it. So you have on the hill or the to kick it off. We're going to start off with the Dream Team, and no, we're not talking about the basketball team, folks.
Aw.
I know. How
No,
awesome
this
would
is a dream team though, so let's run
Hey,
it down.
there you go. So you got the Malcolm Dream, Dusty Rhodes, the captain, teaming up with Brutus the Barber Beefcake, the Red Rooster, and Tito Santana. And they're going up against the Enforcers, which was led by the Big Boss Man, Bad News Brown, Rick the Model Martel, and the Honky Tonk Man. I
Your
feel like
personal favorite.
oh yeah, we've got to love Cousin.
You do have an autograph 8x10 of him.
Only because it came in a wrestling crate, but that's neither here nor there. But he is the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. So
You cannot dispute that.
you can't dispute that. It's proof's in the pudding, my friend. So now following that up, you have the King's Court, led by the Macho King Randy Savage, Dino Bravo, Greg Valentine, and rounding out the team, the Canadian Earthquake. Not to be confused with Earthquake. It's the same guy. It's just back in the day they called him Canadian Earthquake. So, which I didn't know they had a ton of earthquakes in Canada, but that's okay. Now, here's an interesting tidbit for you. Originally, actually, on this team, it was instead of Earthquake, it was actually supposed to be a wrestler called the Widowmaker, who you may all know as Barry Windham, because Barry Windham had a brief, like a run there in the WWF around this time frame. So there you go. But they would go up against the 4x4s, which I'll give you one guess who the team captain was of the 4x4s. Ho! That's right. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, tough guy. And on his team, he's leading Bret Hart, Ronnie Garvin, and the Mighty Hercules. Interesting thing, too, I found about this Survivor Series is like, usually, yeah, I agree. The Widowmaker suplex was scary. Barry Windham has one of the best superplexes of all times, in my opinion, period. I love me some Barry Windham. Probably one of the top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time. Or if you want to call him Uncle Howdy. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously though, there is elements of Barry Windham's face in that mask. I'm just saying, it trips me out, man. But
if they were smart, they'd pursue it.
Yeah, which I don't know. Maybe they're going to kind of drop some little hints in there for us, but who knows? But yeah. But yeah, Widowmaker. Yeah, that suplex was devastating. All right, now following that matchup, we're going to go right into the Hulkamaniacs, brother. And I found this Hulkamaniacs team very different because, like, it wasn't your stereotypical, like, white meat baby faces. Kind of like anti-hero baby faces. So here's who's on Hulk Hogan's team. Demolition, Axe and Smash, and Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, they're going up against the $1 Million Team. And of course, I think you know who the team captain there is. The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Along with the Powers of Pain and Zeus. Oh, God help us. Now, here's something that's interesting about this Survivor Series, too. At the same time, they were kind of advertising Hulk Hogan's movie No Holds Barred. And so they were actually, I think it was like Christmas Eve or something, they were putting out a very special pay-per-view where it was like called No Holds Barred, the movie, then the event. So you could pretty much order the movie on pay-per-view, and then afterwards you could watch, they filmed this on like a house show or something, or back when they did tapings back then. It was a steel cage match with Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake against the Macho Man and Zeus, essentially a rematch from SummerSlam of that year. But I just remember, like, after Hogan was the sole survivor for his team, he comes to the back. He's cutting a promo with Beefcake, Sherry comes in and throws some salt in their eyes or something, and then Macho King and Seuss jump them. So yeah. Now here's something else too we didn't mention. Like back in the day, and I bet you didn't know this, B-roll. They used to actually have intermissions in between matches. Could you imagine them doing that now? Like God, it would have like so much
No.
breathing room on an AEW show, but then again, like you would be there till like 1 a.m. So
Or later.
or later, yeah. So, but back in the day, they used to do like a 10-minute, 15-minute intermission between matches. So now to round out the rest of this oh, were you going to say something? Sorry.
No, I was just saying everything was so different back then.
Oh yeah.
I think people's attention spans were different back then.
That's a good point too. Yeah, because now everybody's just expecting like match after match after. I mean, that's what they're conditioned to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But these were like kind of slow build, which I miss that personally. I love that. Now to finish out the rest of this pay-per-view, you have probably one of my favorite Survivor Series team names of all time. It's actually two of my favorite Survivor Series team names of all time. You have the Rude Brood, led by Ravishing Rick Rude, teaming up with Mr. Perfect and the Fabulous Rougeau brothers. And who would be their oppositions? Rowdy's Roddies, which was led by Rowdy Roddy Piper, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and the team of the Bushwhackers, Luke and Butch. Now, ultimately, Mr. Perfect would end up getting the win for his team in this matchup. And then let's talk about the main event. You have the Warriors going up against the Heenan family. So on the Warriors side of things, you had, of course, team captain the Ultimate Warrior, along with Jim the Anvil Neidhart and the Rockers. And they're going up against the Heenan family, led by Andre the Giant, Haku, and this is where it gets interesting. Originally, it was supposed to be the Brainbusters, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, but they've come up with a kayfabe reason or something, like there was dissension in the Heenan family because Tully Blanchard couldn't wrestle because they suspended him because he got in some issues with some drugs, and of course the rest of that's history. But ended up and actually Bobby Heenan wrestled in this match, believe it or not. I just want to say this too. Bobby Heenan doesn't get enough credit as probably one of the best bumpers in the history of wrestling. Like, he could sell he was so damn good. So damn good.
You know where Bobby Heenan started?
Started in our neck. He's actually from Indianapolis, which how crazy is that? And I don't think a lot of people realize that either. There's a rich history of wrestling here in Indiana, folks. So don't sleep on us here in the Midwest. Just throwing it out there.
It's more than just corn.
There's more than corn in Indiana. All right, gentlemen, let's move on here. Now we're going into Survivor Series 1990. Now, here's the interesting thing about this Survivor Series. This would be the first Survivor Series where they would have, and the only Survivor Series where they did this, and I kind of thought this was a cool concept, the Grand Finale match. Now, pretty much what that consists of is you take the survivors from the babyface team going up against the survivors from the heel team. Now, this Survivor Series is known for a lot of things, and we're going to get into that. But let's just kind of run down the card with your opening matchup. You saw the Warriors, which once again led by the Ultimate Warrior. This time, he's got the Legion of Doom and the Intercontinental Champion, the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, on his team. And they're going up against the Perfect Team, which was led by Mr. Perfect.
Mr. Perfect.
And joined by all of Demolition members. That's right. Axe, Smash, and Crush. Now, the Ultimate Warrior would ultimately be the sole survivor on this team. Now, go figure, right? And he was the WWF champion at the time, so. I mean, one thing I loved about this matchup too, if you go back and watch it, it's like, so it's down to the last three are Perfect against Kerry Von Erich and the Ultimate Warrior. And Perfect hits a perfect plex on Texas Tornado, pins him, eliminates him. And then literally like 30 seconds later, maybe a minute, he hits a perfect plex on Ultimate Warrior, and of course Warrior kicks out. It's like, come on, man. What are you saying here? But hey, it was what it was, so. And I agree, man. It's like Mr. Perfect was the top, not only a top heel in the 90s, it's like one of the greatest heels of all time. I
Oh yeah.
mean, and he backed up everything he said too. Some of the best vignettes of all time. Oh my gosh, just the perfect bowling game, the perfect game of basketball, throwing the football to himself for a touchdown.
Yeah,
It doesn't get much better than
Well,
he
that
was.
was it better than Ultimate Warriors promos?
that. The cockpit, Hulk Hogan, the destrucity of parts unknown. Yeah, yeah. Much more enjoyable and understandable too.
He's also from our neck of the woods.
Perfect. Well, he's from Minnesota, wasn't he?
No, Warrior. He's from Crawfordsville.
Is Warrior? So I'll be damned. Parts unknown is in Crawfordsville. I knew it.
Crawfordsville,
No,
Indiana.
I'll
I
be
knew it.
damned.
I
There you
knew it.
go. So, well, shit. That's right. We're responsible for the Ultimate Warrior, y'all. You're welcome. So, R.I.P. though, seriously. But hey, but yeah. So let's talk about this next matchup. Oh boy. So we're talking about the Dream Team, which was, of course, Dusty Rhodes, along with Coco Beware, against Bret Hart and along with Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, the Hart Foundation, current tag team champions at the time, and they're going up against the $1 Million Team, led by Ted DiBiase, along with Rhythm and Blues, and at the time was a mystery partner. Well, Mr. B-Roll, if you could so kindly, sir, you want to give me control here, and we'll see who that mystery partner was. I think you may know.
You forgot to put.
But the debut of The Undertaker at this Survivor Series. So, yeah, it's got that to hang its hat on. Pretty cool moment. And then, of course, ultimately in this matchup, the $1 Million Man would be the sole survivor. One thing I want to say, too, about this matchup I thought was really cool. So the final two in this match end up being Bret Hart and the $1 Million Man. And Bret Hart at the time, and you have to forgive me, I forget which brother it was of his, but one of his brothers had just passed away. So he wanted to kind of do a little bit of a tribute to his brother. And there's a couple like false finishes in this match with him and DiBiase. It's pretty cool. But like I say, the $1 Million Man does end up picking the win for his team. Now, from there, we go right into a matchup with the Visionaries, which is kind of apropos for the name. And I'll explain here in a second. But you have Captain Rick the Model Martel, the Warlord, Hercules, and Paul Roma, Power and Glory. And they're going up against the Vipers, who are led by Jake the Snake Roberts, along with Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and the Rockers. Now, what's interesting about the names here, of course, for the Visionaries, at the time, storyline wise, Rick the Model Martel had sprayed his arrogance spray in Jake the Snake's eyes, thus causing him to be blind, and thus ended up causing him to be out of the Federation for a little while. And what was cool is when he came back, like, and they had some vignettes kind of showing him his progress and stuff with his doctors. But I just remember he had like the contact in where it was like all one white eye, and then his regular. It was so cool seeing that as a kid. Now, what's interesting about this matchup is this is the first time in history where the entire team survived, which was the Visionaries. So Rick Martel, Warlord, and Power and Glory actually end up are your sole survivors. So right now, if you're looking at the matchup, you've got the Ultimate Warrior pretty much against 5 guys at this point. It's not looking good for the baby faces. But from there, we go into a matchup with the Hulkamaniacs going up against the Natural Disasters. Now, the Hulkamaniacs being led by, of course, Hulk Hogan, along with Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the Big Boss Man, and Tugboat. And I felt like this Hulkamaniac team seemed more to kind of fit like the Hulk Hogan's like who his buddies would be versus the team in '89, you know. But they're going up against the Natural Disasters, which was led by Earthquake, along with Dino Bravo, Haku, and the Barbarian. Now, here's a little interesting side note. At the time, actually, on this team, it was supposed to be Rick Rude was supposed to be a part of this team, but there was a disagreement with pretty much with McMahon, and he ended up leaving the company. So, but I believe the Barbarian actually is who ended up replacing him, or it could have been Haku, one of the two. One of the Heenan family members replaced him. But Now, of course, Hulk Hogan picks up the win for his team, thus joining the Ultimate Warrior. And let's talk about that 5th Survivor Series elimination matchup. You've got the Alliance against the Mercenaries. Now, what's interesting about the Alliance, they were led by team captain Nikolai Volkov, who, believe it or not, was playing babyface. And his tag team was with the Bushwhackers, Luke and Butch, and Tito Santana. Now they're going up against the Mercenaries, which was led by Sergeant Slaughter. You got to keep in mind, folks, the time frame this has happened in 1990. What's going on in the world? We're at war really overseas with Saddam Hussein, or Saddam Hussein, as like Hulk Hogan liked to call him. So at this point, Slaughter has turned over as a heel character as an Iraqi sympathizer, getting huge mega heat. And I gotta say this, looking back on that in retrospect, I thought that storyline was great, like with Sergeant Slaughter turning heel, man. Like, God, he generated so much damn heat off of doing that. But Slaughter's team is comprised of, he has Boris Sukov, former partner of Nikolai Volkov, and the Orient Express, Sato and Tanaka. Interesting enough, Tito Santana would be the sole survivor in this one, and as I believe Sergeant Slaughter got disqualified at the end. So this setting the stage up for pretty much the grand survival matchup. So you got 3 on 5 essentially, and you are going to see the team of Hulk Hogan, along with Tito Santana, and the Ultimate Warrior. And they're going up against the Visionaries, which was Warlord, Power and Glory, and Rick Martel, and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And then ultimately, Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior would win the match and be the grand survivors. So there you go.
Of course, you got your 2 biggest draws back then.
Yeah. You gotta give them. You gotta have those guys go over, right? I mean, come on, man.
So they would say that would set up WrestleMania for Toronto.
Well, no, because WrestleMania in Toronto had already happened. Because remember, Warrior was the champion. So, but it did end up, because Slaughter, they were going to end up going, when they did go up with Slaughter against Hogan. Because it ended up, what's up, Celtic Destroyer? Because what happened was, Warrior drops the belt at the Rumble to Slaughter, and it kind of sets all that up. So. But as great as Survivor Series 90 is, we got to talk about, without a shadow of doubt, as great it was seeing The Undertaker, one of the most iconic characters of all time. Let's talk about the real superstar of Survivor Series 90. Mr. B-Roll, if you could, please.
Yes, indeed.
Talk about one of the greatest gimmicks in the history of all of wrestling, the gobbledygooker, and all of its.
I feel like my life is complete now. My wrestling journey is complete.
Yeah, so you just saw the greatest character of all time. So.
He's also got a WrestleMania under his belt.
He did. He was in the Gimmick Battle Royal at probably one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. So there you go. By God, maybe Austin and Rock drew him, but Gobbledygooker stole the show. So let's fast forward here. Let's fast forward here to the next year, to Survivor Series 1991. Hey, Celtic Destroyer brings up a good point. Have you seen Bobby Heenan in a weasel suit yet?
No.
Well, if it helps any, kind of looks a little something like this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There you go. Probably one of my favorite action figures of all time, just saying.
I was with you when you bought that. So.
Yeah, you were. But so let's Survivor Series 91. Now, this one's an interesting one, because this is the one where the first time where they actually have a WWF title match on the card. So you still have Survivor Series elimination matchups, but you do have a WWF title matchup. We'll talk about that in a minute. So to kick it off, and unfortunately no team names. They've gotten away from the team name concept, which made me sad, but it's okay. I'm looking at you, Papa H. Bring it back. You brought back War Games. Bring back team names to Survivor Series, man. I want to see it. So here you have the babyface team led by Roddy Piper, along with Bret the Hitman Hart, the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith, and Virgil. And they're going up against your heel team led by Ric Flair, along with the Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase, the Warlord, and the Mountie, because the Mountie always gets his man. But yeah, this was kind of a fun opener. A lot of great wrestlers in this one. A lot of future Hall of Famers in this one. And of course, the Nature Boy would be the sole survivor. I like the finish of this matchup because it's interesting because it's pretty much you have like 6 guys like just going at it at the same time in the ring, and then Flair's on the outside because he's been beaten up or whatever. And then the referee ends up disqualifying all the guys that were in the ring, but the guy on the outside ends up being sole survivor. And of course, it's the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. So there you have it.
That's a dusty finish.
Oh, that's a dusty finish if I ever saw one, brother. So following that up, we have the team of your babyface team of Sergeant Slaughter, who had just become babyface again, teaming up with Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the Texas Tornado, and El Matador, Tito Santana. And they're going up against this foursome. How about this? Random heels put together. Colonel Mustafa, Hercules, the Berserker, and Skinner, the Alligator Man. Just a random team put together.
Yeah.
And the baby faces would ultimately survive this one. Now let's talk about what this pay-per-view is mostly known about. The Gravest Challenge. So WWF Championship on the line. You have Hulk Hogan defending the title against The Undertaker. Fast forward here a year later, and The Undertaker's already getting a title shot. Just shows you how awesome he is. But here's the crazy thing about this. Undertaker defeats Hogan. I mean, this is Hogan in his, like, his prime of saying your prayers, eating your vitamins. I'm not jobbing for anybody, brother. But it wasn't a clean finish, obviously. Ric Flair comes down the ring, puts a chair underneath into the ring where the Undertaker tombstones him on it, and ends up neck stinger. Yeah. Oh my God, that still kills me this day. That freaking Hogan. If you look, like, seriously, go back and watch the footage of that. He does not even come remotely near like getting dropped on his head. Like, he's a good couple inches away from getting dropped on his damn head.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Hulk Hogan. So yeah, Undertaker winning his first WWF title ever, and at a young age too. Only a year into the Federation, which was pretty impressive, unheard of really back then. I mean, of course, we're talking about it now, and it's like, oh, well, it's the Undertaker. That makes perfect sense. But you got to understand, folks, like back then, that stuff did not happen at all.
I mean, it's kind of putting all your chips on a talent there.
Yeah, it really is. But it was really cool to see, nonetheless. And I love too, like the shots in the crowd, and it's going out and showing the kids and the little Hulkamaniacs just crying and in tears, like, oh no, Hulk Hogan lost. Yeah. So there you go. And Celtic Destroyer, you're reading my mind, brother, because that's what I was getting ready to go into. So what was interesting about this Survivor Series is like they were advertising a very rare kind of like it was supposed to be a house show, but they turned it into a pay-per-view. And it was this Tuesday in Texas. And it was a very important show because you would have the rematch between Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker. Now, ultimately, Hulk Hogan would win the belt back, but it would be in a controversial manner and would set it up for the WWF title to be vacated and up for grabs in the 1992 Royal Rumble. And we all know who won that. Woo!
Woo!
There we go. Now, what was also interesting about that Tuesday in Texas pay-per-view is there was a big storyline going on between the Macho Man Randy Savage and Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, originally, they were supposed to be in the main, pretty much they were going to be in the main event. But before I talk about that, I did skip a match. You also had the Rockers teaming up with the Bushwhackers going up against the Beverly Brothers and the Nasty Boys. And the one thing I will say about that matchup is it does plant the seeds for the Rockers breaking up, because Marty Jannetty actually accidentally does cost Shawn Michaels the match, or getting eliminated. But yeah, let's talk about what was supposed to be the main event. It was supposed to be a 4-on-4, but ended up being a 3-on-3. because one of the greatest angles, in my opinion, just terrified the shit out of me as a kid. And we've talked about it before here on the show. When Jake the Snake bit into Randy Savage's arm, and thus put him out. It did enable him to get reinstated storyline wise, but he did end up. They did end up just going to wrestle at Tuesday in Texas. So it changed it to a 3-on-3 Survivor Series elimination matchup. So you have a team of IRS and the Natural Disasters going up against the Big Boss Man and the Legion of Doom. Now, here's another interesting fact for you. Originally, Macho Man wasn't going to be in this matchup. It was actually supposed to be the team captain was supposed to be Sid Justice. However, I believe Sid got injured or there was something that happened that pretty much took him out of the Survivor Series that year.
Probably a softball game.
Yeah, probably. That's fair. That's a very fair assessment, sir. But yeah, that was Survivor Series 91. Another fun one, I thought. Now, Survivor Series 92 is interesting because at this point now, this is the first Survivor Series where they completely got away from these Survivor Series matches. There was one match on the card, but the rest of the card's pretty much single and tag team matches. So let's just kind of get into that. So your opener was the Head Shrinkers, Samu and Fatu, going up against High Energy, which was Coco Beware and the Rocket, Owen Hart. A fun little tag team match to kind of kick it off. Of course, the Head Shrinkers do end up getting the win. Now, you would have a couple of matches on this card that were specialty gimmick matches. It was a part of some feuds. And the next match here would be a nightstick match with the Big Boss Man going up against the man he incarcerated years ago, but he's gotten out, and now he's coming to get his revenge against the Big Boss Man, Nails. What a terrible name. Terrible gimmick. And the fact that he did end up accusing Vince McMahon of sexually harassing him. So go figure. So maybe when they were doing like the investigations, they found out the truth behind what really happened to Nails earlier this year. You know what I'm saying? If they were doing a deep dive. Oh God. I can't even imagine. Nor would I want to. But what was interesting to me about this matchup is how they were all like, right beforehand, I just remember them being like, viewer discretion advised for this matchup. And it was like, they talked it up like it's going to be so brutal, and it wasn't. It's brutal to watch, but that's about it. But so pretty much, B-roll, it was a nightstick match, so the nightstick was actually hanging from a pole, so you had to incapacitate your opponent to go up and crawl and get the nightstick.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking about WCW?
I knew you were going there. I said, and no, Vince Russo didn't book this match. I promise you. No Judy Bagwell on a pole match yet. Not at this Survivor Series. No. So from that matchup, you go to another kind of a feud going on at the time that year. Tatanka against Rick Martel. And what I remember about this matchup is at the time, Rick Martel, the storyline was he had stolen Tatanka's feathers, I think it was, or something, from his like headdress or something. And he was kind of wearing them as like an Ashcroft or something. I don't know, but I just thought that made me laugh as a kid. And then from there you go into what was billed as your main event. Now, you've noticed on the couple of these Survivor Series we've been talking here. Remember, Mr. B-roll, card subject to change. Another one here too. So originally the main event of this Survivor Series was supposed to be Razor Ramon teaming up with the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and they were going to go up against the Ultimate Maniacs, which was Macho Man Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior. However, the Ultimate Warrior did get in some troubles to where he ended up ultimately getting fired from the WWF again. Imagine that. And had to be replaced. And who would be replaced by? Well, you can only find one man that would be perfect enough for this job. Mr. Perfect. So the Macho Man and Mr. Perfect. And here's another cool thing about this, too, is Perfect was, at the time, in Ric Flair's camp. And he had been working heel for the longest of time, you know. And now, all of a sudden, just out of necessity, really, they turn him babyface. And also, too, he returns to the ring because you got to keep in mind, Perfect hadn't wrestled since SummerSlam 91, the year before. So due to some back issues and stuff. But yeah, so they end up having this tag team matchup. And of course, Mr. Perfect and the Macho Man pick up the win. Now, after that, you have a pretty much a squash match with Virgil going up against Yokozuna. And here's what I remember most about this one as a kid. I remember back in the day, like, and you guys may remember, or Brian, you may remember this when Bobby Heenan would do like the replays, and it was like he called it like the brain scan or something like that, and like he was talking about like Yokozuna's leg, and he was like drawing, and it was just like, yeah, that's a big old turkey leg he just dropped on Virgil there. I just always love that. I love Bobby on commentary, man. I love Bobby in general, but yeah, I just always got a kick out of that. Now we do get one Survivor Series elimination matchup on this card. Now, granted, it's not your typical standard one like we've seen before in the past, but we end up getting the Natural Disasters teaming with the Nasty Boys against Money Inc. and the Beverly Brothers. Now, the difference on this is when your teammate is pinned, you're gone. So really, you only have to get 2 pinfalls to win this matchup, essentially. And the Nasty Boys actually would end up being the survivors of this one. Now, the last 2 matches of the card are the most important, in my opinion. First off, you have the very first ever casket match. And it was The Undertaker against Kamala. Now, what was really cool about this, too, or maybe not cool, it was kind of awkward. So how they designed the casket match before is like, it wasn't like the lid you opened up and closed. It actually was like you had to put them in the casket, put the lid on, and then you had to nail the lid on top. And it just seemed like that had to have been awkward as hell. And I can't even imagine being poor Kamala just like hearing the nail come into the coffin.
Oh.
That would creep me the hell out, man.
No, thank you.
Yeah. But let's talk about your main event. And this is an interesting one because this is really like, now I'm going to tell you what it is, B-roll, but you're not going to think anything of it. But if you put yourself in the shoes of 1992, this literally is like, okay, I'm literally seeing before my eyes the next era of the WWF begin, which would be the new generation. So here's your main event. Champion versus champion, but only for the WWF title. You have WWF champion Bret the Hitman Hart would defend against Intercontinental champion Shawn Michaels in the main event. And like I say, you hear that on paper, you're like, okay, just another Bret Hart Shawn Michaels match. But this was huge back in the day. Because number one, it was like you're talking like you guys like Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, Ric Flair, always in the main event. And now you've got these 2 young up-and-comers like in the main event. And it was a hell of a matchup. And in my honest opinion, outside of the Iron Man match, it's probably my favorite Bret Hart Shawn Michaels match of all time. It's a really good matchup. It's very well paced, excellent stories told, phenomenal matchup. And of course,
the excellence of execution.
That's right. And of course, my boy won. The Hitman won. So so that was Survivor Series 1992. So we're just going to keep on keeping on here. Let's get into Survivor Series 93. Now, this one, they did bring back some team names, which I appreciated.
Yes.
So
the team names make it more fun, for sure.
Yes. Now, this one, though, once again, we're going to go with this card subject to change because there's a lot of shit that happened on this show where like it didn't end up being what was originally advertised. And we'll start that off with the opener. So your heel team, you have IRS teaming up with Adam Bomb, Diesel, and Rick Martel. And they're going up against Razor Ramon, the 1-2-3 Kid, Marty Jannetty, and it was originally supposed to be Mr. Perfect. However, Mr. Perfect, I think there was a contract dispute or something, and ended up he was replaced by the Macho Man Randy Savage. How about that as a replacement? Now, ultimately, believe it or not, your sole survivors on this one would be the 1-2-3 Kid and Marty Jannetty. So the underdog, kind of like lighter wrestlers, picking up the W here. Now let's talk about the next matchup. Ooh. So there was really 2 big matches advertised for this show because there was 2 big feuds going on at the time. And one of those feuds was Bret Hart against Jerry Lawler. And this matchup was going to be pretty much the Hart family going up against Jerry Lawler and his Knights. But that's not what happened. I'll explain, Mr. B-Roll. So essentially what happened is like the story had built and built and built, but there's some real life stuff came into effect. And as we like to always say on Coldcast, if you really want to find out more information on this, you could always Wikipedia that shit. Because everybody gets one. But what happened was Jerry Lawler was actually accused of having a relationship or assaulting a minor. Which was like obviously still to this day a big no-no, but like back then it was like holy shit. So obviously they had to pull Jerry Lawler's ass off, and he wasn't on the pay-per-view. So replacing him was Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels was just coming off of a drug suspension. So, and it was just weird because his partner, it was supposed to be Jerry Lawler and his Knights, and it was so short of notice when this happened. It still ended up being the Knights, but they were teaming up with Shawn Michaels, which is like made no sense. Why does Shawn Michaels have Knights? But it's like, fuck it, we got a pay-per-view to sell. We're going with it.
That's right.
So the
pay-per-view must go on.
That's right. So the Shawn Michaels teams up with the Black Knight, which is played by wrestler Jeff Gaylord. The Red Knight, played by journeyman Barry Horowitz. And the Blue Knight, a guy you may know, Greg the Hammer Valentine, which is, to me, it's like Greg Valentine. You see Greg Valentine, you know who the hell it is. Like, even as a kid, I was like, that's Greg Valentine. Like, you're not fooling me. It's like, I hope he got a good payday for that. But, so they're going up against the Hart family, which was led by Bret Hart, along with Owen Hart, Bruce Hart, and Keith Hart. Now, the big thing with this matchup is this sets up the stage for the brotherly rivalry between Bret Hart and Owen Hart. This is what kicks off that feud, because Bret accidentally runs into Owen and ends up costing Owen to be eliminated from this matchup. So there you go. Now, in between here, this matchup I found very interesting, so much so because the fact that they actually had this on a WWF pay-per-view, where they actually let another promotion come in and have a title match. So you have, for the Smoky Mountain Tag Team Championship, the Rock and Roll Express defending against the Heavenly Bodies. And of course, anytime you get those two teams together, that's like money right there. Which this was a fun matchup too. I really loved this matchup. And just seeing like Cornette work his magic in this match. It's a pretty good matchup. And you got to say you see Rock and Roll Express, one of the greatest tag teams of all time, on in this matchup. So had some of the most brutal commentary by Bobby, and this was actually, it's interesting you say that, Mannix, because this was Bobby's last pay-per-view that he would call outside of the guest appearance he had at WrestleMania 17. But this would be the last pay-per-view Bobby would call. Now, following that matchup, you have the team of Bam Bam Bigelow teaming up with Bastion Booger and the Head Shrinkers, and they're going up against not one, not two, not three, but four. The four Doinks, which at the time were like, we have no idea what the hell this is going to be. And when we got what we got, we're just like, okay. So essentially, Mr. B-Roll, the four Doinks consisted of the Bushwhackers teaming up with Men on a Mission, but not just ordinary, like in their regular gear. They had the Doink the Clown makeup on, which I know is your worst nightmare because you hate clowns. So imagine seeing big old 500-pound Mabel as dressed up as a clown. Yeah, you're gonna have problems sleeping tonight, my friend.
It's a big clown.
So yeah, this is just a bizarre
Thank
one
you for
to
not
me.
putting that on the screen.
Oh, I could. No, this one's
He
just.
is the world's largest love machine.
That's right. Maybe we could show a clip of him humping Matt Hardy at the Royal Rumble. Would that make you feel better?
Yeah.
Would that make you feel better, dude?
As long as we can watch the Yetis debut again too.
There you go. Oh my Lanta. So yeah. So from God. So this match had a lot of comedy in it, like where they were doing kind of like clownish things and stuff. But the one thing I liked is like when Bam Bam like was pissed and he took like I think a tricycle or something. One of the bushwhackers was freaking riding around on it. He took it and he threw the son of a bitch and like broke the crap out of it. It just you could hear it shatter on the ground. and even Vince was like, "Whoa, pal." Oh man. So let's talk about the main event. You've got the foreign fanatics against the all Americans. And there's a lot of changes in this matchup. So originally the All Americans was comprised of team captain Lex Luger, along with the Native American Tatanka and the Steiner brothers. However, they did end up writing Tatanka out of the team, and of all people, they got him replaced by The Undertaker. Of course, at the time, it was kind of to start building up a storyline between The Undertaker and Yokozuna, because Undertaker in 1993 had already served his time in hell by working with the Giant Gonzalez all year. Just saying.
That's true. That's true.
So they're going up against the Foreign Fanatics, led by team captain Yokozuna, Ludwig Borga, and originally was the Quebecers, Shock, and I want to just say PCO because that's who it is, but oh man, I can't even think of his Quebecer name now. I just think Pierre. So ends up like they write Pierre off storyline wise, and they have him replaced by the newly turned heel Crush. So Crush joined up because Crush is being managed by Mr. Fuji. So yeah, that was your main event, and of course you send everybody home happy, and pretty much you get Lex Luger as the sole survivor. Santa Claus comes down to ringside, and it's snowing, and there you go. Everybody's happy and going home. So that was Survivor Series '93. We're just going to keep on trucking here because, like I say, we got a lot of ground to cover. And, of course, we're not going to get to every Survivor Series tonight. But, hey, you're going to have to join us all for week 2 when we break down the second half of these. But still kind of in the new generation era here. And I really like Survivor Series 94. Dare I say, it's probably one of my favorite Survivor Series, honestly. So this end, by the way, too, part of it's because they did go back to getting team names, damn it, which I was excited for. So your opener, you have the Teamsters, led by Diesel, along with Shawn Michaels, Jeff Jarrett, Jim Neidhart, and Owen Hart. And they're going up against the Bad Guys, led by Razor Ramon, the 1-2-3 Kid, the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith, and the Head Shrinkers. Only this Head Shrinkers team is consisting of Fatu and Sione, a.k.a. the Barbarian. And this was an interesting matchup because it set up a storyline pretty much because this is where Shawn Michaels and Diesel end up breaking up. Because what had happened was pretty much Diesel had took out the entire team minus Razor Ramon, and he was pretty much about ready to finish Razor, but then Shawn tagged himself in for the first time in the match, mind you, and wanted to hit Sweet Chin music. So he had Diesel hold Razor, but Razor ducked. He kicked Diesel. And pretty much Diesel went chasing after Shawn, and the rest of the team tried to stop him. And it just melee ensued, and they all got counted out, and Razor Ramon ended up picking the win. So now,
That's
right
the,
after,
good friends, better enemies.
it would go into WrestleMania 11, but you're right, they would meet their good friends and better enemies there a year after that. But yeah, because right after that, because there is a title change on this pay-per-view, which we'll talk about here momentarily. Now, right after that, we go into another Survivor Series matchup, and this is a silly one. Pretty much, so you have Doink the Clown with his team of, okay, what's the PC term? This is dwarf? Can we say dwarf? Dwarf's okay, right? I think that's correct. It's with his dwarf team led by Dink, Wink, and Pink. And they're going up against Jerry Lawler's team with Jerry Lawler and his dwarf teams, which, oh my God, the names are so ridiculous. It was Sleazy, Queasy, and Wheezy. This is just a comedy match through and through. Check it out if you want to, but Jerry Lawler ends up ultimately picking up the win. Yeah.
I
Now,
won't check it out.
why is that? Because does that scare you even more? Like, does dwarf clown scare you more than a regular sized clown?
No, just clowns in general.
Okay.
Just clowns
okay.
in general.
Just trying to get a gauge there. It's all good, brother.
No clowns.
Now, in my opinion, the best match on this card by far, WWF title matchup. You get Bob Backlund. That's right, Bob Backlund, 45-year-old Bob Backlund challenging Bret the Hitman Hart. And this is billed as a submission match. So pretty much what happens is, the way to win this match, obviously, is to make your opponent submit or tap out or whatever. Or throw in the towel. Now, the great storytelling with this is when Bob Backlund lost the WWF title back in 1984 to the Iron Sheik, it was because his manager, Arnold Scullin, had thrown in the towel. So they had cornermen in each of their corners. So British Bulldog is in the corner of Bret Hart, and Owen Hart is in the corner of Bob Backlund. Now, of course, still continuing on with the story of Bret and Owen. And what's interesting is Bret's parents are sitting ringside for this, right? And so what ends up happening is Bulldog gets knocked out, and Bret Hart's in the chicken wing, the crossface chicken wing, for like 5 minutes, pretty much. Like, I'm dead serious. It's like 5 or 6. He's in it forever. And like Owen's crying. He's pleading with his mother, please. I don't want to. I want to change my mind. I've changed my mind. I love my big brother Bret. You got to stop this. He's going to end his career. And like old poor little Helen Hart's like in tears. And then she's thinking about it, and Stu's like, "No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't throw it in. I'll get in there and get him in a headlock, and then I'll destroy Bob." I don't. That was a terrible Stu Hart. But anyways, so ends up Helen does get the towel and throws it in, and thus costs Bret the match. And of course, Owen goes into the ring, takes the towel as like a trophy, and he's celebrating because his deviousness, his deception cost his big brother the championship. And there you go. Bob Backlund wins the WWF title, which nobody, if you back in the day, I don't think anybody saw that coming, that Bob Backlund would be winning that. Now, of course, he would drop the belt less than 7 days later in Madison Square Garden to Diesel, thus kind of starting Diesel's big big run there. So, but definitely the best match of the night was that matchup. But you also had another Survivor Series elimination matchup on this card. You had the Guts and Glory, led by Captain Lex Luger, along with Adam Bomb, Mabel from Men on a Mission, and the Smoking Guns. And they're going up against the $1 Million Team, led by Tatanka, Bam Bam Bigelow, King Kong Bundy, and the Heavenly Bodies. But the main event, the casket match, to follow up from earlier in the year when The Undertaker had been beat up by pretty much 12 different bad guys and ended up getting cost the match and was put in the casket by Mr. Fuji's devious men that he hired. So they're having the rematch because The Undertaker's back now. So The Undertaker against Yokozuna. But there's a concern, Mr. B-Roll. What's going to stop all these guys from coming back and attacking The Undertaker, you know? I mean, The Undertaker can only do so much. There's only one man. There's only one human being that he could possibly turn to as a special enforcer. And that's right. It's the Texas Ranger himself, baby. Chuck Norris was the special enforcer of this match. And Mr. B-Roll, if you will, I kind of want to show you a clip from this match because I absolutely, one of my all-time favorite moments in this match.
I appreciate it as long as there's no clowns.
There is no clowns, sir. Look at the sell of Jeff Jarrett on that, man. Right? How crazy was that?
And that's why Jeff Jarrett's in AEW.
There you go, dude. Like JEFFJARRETT, baby. Yeah. So I love that kick, man. I love the sound of that kick. It was so freaking awesome. So that's pretty much with Survivor Series 94. Now let's move on to Survivor Series 95. And this has a great main event on it. And also has a very unique Survivor Series elimination matchup. And to my knowledge, I think this is the last year where they used the tag team names. So in your opener, you have the Body Donnas, led by Captain Skip, along with Rad Radford, the late, great Louis Spicoli, Dr. Tom Pritchard, and ended up being their mystery partner, the 1-2-3 Kid, who had just turned heel and been bought by the $1 Million Man. And they're going up against
Everyone has a price.
Everybody's got a price, baby. And they're going up against the team of the underdogs led by Marty Jannetty, Hakushi, Barry Horowitz, and Bob Holly. Kind of an okay, decent opener. 1-2-3 Kid, of course, ends up picking up the win, and this is the sole survivor. Now, after that was a really interesting Survivor Series elimination matchup because you're getting an all-female Survivor Series matchup. And, of course, back in the day, not a whole lot of females on the roster. So you have the heel team led by Bertha Faye, along with Aja Kong, who is making her Federation debut, which obviously Aja Kong, one of the greatest Japanese women's wrestlers of all time. Teaming up with Toimaka Watanabe and Lioness Asuka. And they're going up against Alundra Blaze's team, which was Kyoka Iuno, Asaki Hasegawa, and Chaparetti Asari. And if I butcher that, I apologize in advance.
Hey, I'm sure you did better than I would have, so I applaud you, good sir.
Well, thank you. And this kind of, at the time, was supposed to be setting up for a matchup to be Alundra Blaze against Aja Khan, but that match never did happen. So. Now, following that, you have a one-on-one matchup. How about this one-on-one matchup? This is a unique one. Goldust against Bam Bam Bigelow. And I really like this matchup too. It's a good clash of styles, and of course, like these are two of my favorite wrestlers, man, of all time. So,
yeah, that is. I mean, that to me is like, I haven't seen it, but that to me is definition of styles make fights.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Now, after that, we've got a Survivor Series matchup with the Dark Side, the team of The Undertaker, Savio Vega, Fatu, and Henry Godwin. Or you might as well just go ahead and say it's the BSK going up against the Royals, led by King Mabel, Jerry Lawler, Isaac Yankem, and Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And now the storyline in this matchup was pretty much the Undertaker was taken out because he got by Mabel because he got the leg dropped on him and stuff. So yeah, and you ended up getting the Undertaker beating the shit out of the rest of the team pretty much, and the whole team survived. Everybody wins. Let's go to the back and play dominoes, boys. So there you go. Now, this one, the next matchup on this card was interesting because it was the first time they did this, and the only time they ever did this. And it ended up, it was actually what they called a wild card matchup. All right. And what that consisted of pretty much is you had heels teaming with baby faces and baby faces teaming with heels. So listen to this lineup. You've got Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson teaming up with the heels, the British Bulldog and Psycho Sid. And they're going up against the heel team of Yokozuna, Owen Hart, Dean Douglas, and babyface Razor Ramon.
Dean Douglas.
Oh, Dean Douglas. If I had a chalkboard. No. Yeah, this one was interesting because like it was. I like the concept, and I kind of wish they would have done that a couple other years after the fact. But like I say, this was the only time they did it. But you had like at the time Razor was feuding with Shane Douglas or Dean Douglas. You also had Shawn who was had been feuding with Sid. So it made for an interesting matchup nonetheless. But your main event, phenomenal WWF Championship matchup. Big Daddy Cool Diesel defending against Bret the Hitman Hart. And I would dare say this is probably, in my opinion, I think this is the best matchup they ever had. And they had a lot of good ones, but this one, you got to keep in. This was kind of the rubber match for them, but the build up for it was like they had both. I think the first one, Diesel won by DQ because Jim Neidhart interfered at King of the Ring 94. And then they met at the Royal Rumble 95, and that was a big schmoz where like a bunch of wrestlers come out like Bob Backlund, Owen Hart, Shawn Michaels, just to name a few, to interfere in that matchup. But essentially, and I think this also too was a no DQ match, maybe I want to say. But this is often known for like a really sick spot where Diesel throws Bret Hart through a table. And what's interesting about it, B-roll, is like at this time frame, guys weren't going through tables, not like this. That was very uncommon back then.
Can we watch it?
Can we watch it? Well, if we had time, we would, because we got to cut some stuff out already. But yeah, you can go. Tell you what, you can go watch it on the Peacock network. All you got to do is pay $4.99 or whatever a month, or $9.99 if you don't want commercials. See, we're plugging Peacock, and they're not paying us a damn thing. So there you go.
So the least they can do is let our SmackDown video go up on YouTube,
That's right, Papa
royalty
H.
free, copyright free.
That's right, Papa H. Don't hold your breath. We'll see. But it was a great matchup, and Bret Hart does end up winning the WWF title back. So, hurrah!
See, I'm noticing a trend here. You really like the matches where Bret wins. You always say they're your favorite.
Well,
I'm just saying,
it,
you know.
it is what
Yeah.
it is. He's the best there is, the best there was, and best there ever will be. But hey,
Yeah.
there it is. You know, it is what it is. So, all
I
right,
got
let's
to
go.
eat
Oh,
dinner
go
with him one time.
You had dinner with Bret? Oh yeah, probably because of okay. That how was that?
So I got invited to WrestleMania 30. I took Logan Fordyce. You know Logan?
Yeah.
I took him
Johnny
down there.
Justice.
Yeah. They gave us, all access bracelets, tickets. We rode buses there. And it was the after party because he had to work the next morning. He's like, if they're going to let us go to the after party, I'm going to call in. And then Ricardo Rodriguez came up, Alberto Del Rio's ring announcer. He's like, here you boys go. And then he looked at me, and then we went, and then that was just Mark Henry's dancing with Jack Swagger, and everybody is just partying. And then I sat down with TJ and Natty, and then over came Bret, and I was just like, I could die now.
Oh my god, I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Like that's my bucket list. I got to meet Brett at some point. But man, if you're just like sitting down, well, okay, I got to know. Were you guys eating? Like, was he eating? And if so, what was he eating?
So he was doing more drinking than eating, but he wasn't like slamming him back. So Brett was drinking a little bit, and he looked at me, and I don't know, he just thought he was being funny or something. He started dancing in his chair, and I was like, I could die right now. I could die on the way home. I swear.
That is God. I'm so jealous. That's
Logan was like
incredible.
in full like overload because there's everybody everywhere.
Oh, it's got to be sensory overload too. And good God, what a mania too. I mean, geez, that's like one of the better ones in the past. Well, one of the best ones of all time, in my opinion. Was 30. It was awesome. That's a hell of a story. God, I would have loved. Yeah, at some point, I am going to meet Brett. I don't know how. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. Damn it. So, Survivor Series '96 coming to you from Madison Square Garden. Your opener, you got Doug Furness, Philip LaFon, Henry Godwin and Phineas Godwin going up against the British Bulldog, Owen Hart, and the New Rockers, Leif Cassidy, aka Al Snow, and Murray Jannetty. So I'm just going to kind of go right through these here a little quickly. Now this one you had like a mixture of Survivor Series matchups and then singles matchups, but you also do have the Undertaker against Mankind, and continuing their rivalry. And then let's talk about this Survivor Series elimination matchup. You have the team of Crush, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Jerry Lawler, and Goldust. They're going up against Jake the Snake Roberts, Mark Marrow, the Stalker, aka Barry Windham, and a guy you may be familiar with, Mr. B-Roll, a guy named Rocky Maifia, or you know him better as The Rock. That's right. This Survivor Series, well, hey, Survivor Series 90 was the debut of The Undertaker. This one's the debut of The Rock. His first WWF match was at Survivor Series 96. And he ends up being the sole survivor in this matchup, which is pretty cool. His gimmick though, not so much. Yeah, he's got the chia pet hair. He's got
Yeah.
it's a little much.
You live and learn. You live and learn.
Yeah, but hey, by God, he would figure it out pretty soon. So it's all good. The talent was definitely there in the ring, but yeah, the gimmick not so much. Now, to me, the best match of the night by far, and it's another Bret Hart match. But listen to this. How about first time ever one-on-one Bret the Hitman Hart against Stone Cold Steve Austin? Dude,
What?
this is such a good matchup. WrestleMania 13 is what it is, but like, I don't know. There's something about this matchup. I honestly think I enjoy it slightly more than the WrestleMania 13 matchup, which I do love the 13 matchup, but like this was just like, I think what it was as a kid is like I was so hyped to see this, and then it was just like when it happened, I was like, holy shit, this lived up to my what I expected. An awesome matchup. And Brett's first matchup coming back from being off since WrestleMania 12.
And who won?
Bret Hart.
And who won it at WrestleMania?
Hey, Brett won at WrestleMania 2, so don't give me that crap, okay?
Mhm.
Just saying. Oh, you also have another Survivor Series matchup on this night. You've got the team of this was a weird team, Diesel, which is the fake Diesel, by the way, fake Razor Ramon, teaming up with Vader and Farouk, and they're going up against Yokozuna, Flash Funk making his Federation debut, aka Too Cold Scorpio, and Savio Vega with a mystery partner. And the mystery partner would be the newly cemented Hall of Famer Jimmy Superfly Snuka. This matchup, I don't even know why the hell they did it, other than it's like, okay, let's give you guys a spot on the card. It just ends up being a smosh, and really the crowd is not into it at all. Other than when Snuka come out, that was kind of a pleasant surprise. But outside of that, it's just kind of like, eh. But your main event, you saw Shawn Michaels defended the WWF Championship against Psycho Sid. And in classic New York fashion, they were all about Psycho Sid. And Sid would end up winning the matchup and becoming WWF champion for the first time in the main event. Obviously, he did not have a softball engagement this weekend.
No.
So
It's true. It's true.
So Psycho Sid ends up picking up the win. But let's get to the Survivor Series. You knew we were going to talk about this. Probably the most controversial, most talked about Survivor Series of all time. Survivor Series 97. It was tagged Gang Wars, but or Gang Rules. But in actuality, we all will know it as the Montreal Screwjob.
Mhm.
So this one, you got a blend of Survivor Series matchups along with some singles matchup. We'll just run them down here real quickly. You had the New Age Outlaws teaming with the Headbangers, and they're going up against the New Blackjacks. Or I'm sorry, it was the New Age Outlaws teaming with the Goblins going against the Headbangers and the New Blackjacks. You had the Truth Commission against the Disciples of Apocalypse in a Survivor Series matchup. You had Team Canada led by the British Bulldog, along with Doug Furnace and Philip Lafon against Jim Neidhart, and they're going against Team USA, which was Fader, Goldust, Mark Merrill, and Steve Blackman. You had Ken Shamrock, Ahmed Johnson, the Legion of Doom going against the Nation of Domination, and then in singles matchup, you had Kane against Mankind. You had Stone Cold against Owen Hart for the IC title, but let's talk about it. The main event: Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart for the WWF title. Oh my gosh. You know what's crazy too? I think what was it? We just literally this is like we just celebrated the 25th anniversary of this.
25th anniversary.
How crazy is it to think
Yeah.
this happened 25 years ago? That's just nuts to me. I cannot believe this was 25 years ago.
And like the crazy thing about it is, so I was listening to Busted Open that day, and obviously they were talking about it, 25th anniversary, and they were still letting people call in, and people are still calling in just as passionate about it as if it just happened.
It is literally the one topic in wrestling where I think you can literally cut it down the middle. It is that it's 50-50. It's not
Like I
like
was
more towards one side or the other. Yeah, you're either
Like I
Team
was telling
Shawn or
you.
Team Brett.
Yeah, like I was telling you, I voted on a poll on Twitter, and literally, as soon as it showed me the results, it was 50-50.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, here is one interesting aspect about Survivor Series that year and the Montreal Screwjob that I found was at the time they were actually filming a documentary. It was called Hitman Hart: Wrestling with Shadows. And what I'd like to do right now, Mr. B-Roll, let's watch a little clip from Hitman Hart. Yeah. This is just fascinating. because you see the behind the scenes of literally what happened in one of the most iconic moments in wrestling about Bret Hart. If you've never seen it, seriously, go look it up on YouTube. It's a phenomenal documentary. And then, like I say, I still to this day, my mind is blown that they just so happen to be doing a documentary on Bret Hart while this happened.
Yeah, it's
Um,
unreal.
yeah, it really is. Um, Bryan, I'm sure you've seen that before, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, it's a great documentary. Great
very
documentary.
good. Even if you're not like a diehard wrestling fan, it's something definitely you should check out.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, just the story alone, especially what happened in Montreal, it's just
Hmm.
once again, my mind's still blown to this day that they actually were able to get that on footage on camera.
Yeah.
So, well, if you were ever going to be backstage for a moment, that would be the time to
Oh
be
yeah.
there to film. So, but yeah, so I know you, Mr. B-roll, you're going to be watching that either today, later, or probably tomorrow or something, right?
Yeah, I'm like, honestly, like that little clip drew me in, and I'm like, I get off the show a little bit late, but
I may have to watch a little bit before you hit the fart sack, as we call it in my house, or
yeah,
hit the hay. So yes, but Survivor Series '97. I mean, what else can you say about it? I mean,
Hmm.
it's an unfortunate moment, but it's one of the most historic moments. I mean, because let's face facts. I mean, yes, it's in the Attitude Era, but I don't think you get the Vince McMahon character if that didn't happen.
yeah,
At least not to the degree of what it was. Um, but yeah, it's just crazy to think like, and somebody asked me a question the other day, and it was really like perplexing for me to think about. And they asked, well, what do you think would have happened if Bret Hart stayed with the WWF and was there for like all of the Attitude Era? And it's like, I don't. It's so weird because it's like I can't see it. Like I
Hmm.
can't picture it as great as Brett was, and like it would have worked. I just can't see him working there. Like we're against like those being like with all the controversial storylines and stuff. Because I mean, at this time in '97, they were just really like scratching the surface of getting really
Hmm.
like really of the more adult oriented elements of WWF product
yeah.
at the time. So,
Hmm.
all right, so 1 year later, we get Survivor Series '98, and this is a lot of people's favorite Survivor Series. One of my favorites too, because we get a tournament for the WWF title, the Deadly Game tournament. And honestly, on a side note, probably one of the greatest Survivor Series themes of all time, because it's a deadly game. I had to do that once.
Don't quit your
Uh,
day job.
yeah, that's right. So this tournament, so the storylines in it was great because you had like guys that were in it at the time. Um, Vince McMahon, obviously in the height of his feud with Stone Cold, didn't want him to win the belt, didn't want him to be the top guy for the company, and he's pretty much decided he's going to go with, of all people, Mankind as his representative. And what's interesting about Mankind is the people love Mankind, but it's just like at the same time too, they're like, oh no, don't go with Vince because Vince has done all these things to kind of spoil him. Like he's cleaned him up to where he's shaved. Get this, B-roll. He's actually wrestling like in a suit and tie. And in the first couple matches, I think he's even wrestling in loafers too.
Oh my goodness.
It's just crazy. Like
I'm
if
gonna
you
have to
watch
look
it,
that
it's
up.
yeah, and pretty much he ends up getting to the semifinals of this. I'm not going to break the whole thing down, but the semifinals of this, you end up having Austin against Mankind, and they pretty much screw Austin. He gets eliminated from the tournament, and Mankind gets to the finals. At the same time, too, you got a storyline going on where like they're not too happy with The Rock, who's starting to rise in fame, so they kind of set up obstacles for The Rock to like that way he doesn't make it to the finals, but he does end up making it to the finals. So you have Mankind, who the Vince McMahon wants to be the WWF champion, against The Rock, who he doesn't want to be. But it's a big old swerve, and they recreate what happened at Survivor Series '97 as The Rock literally looks over, raises the eyebrow, puts Mankind in the sharpshooter, and thus the McMahons screwed Mankind out of winning the WWF title, and thus The Rock winning his first WWF championship was at Survivor Series 1998. It's a great Survivor Series. The tournament's great. The stories that was told throughout that tournament's awesome. Um, like I say, that was probably another one of my favorites. Not just favorite Survivor Series. That's probably one of my favorite pay-per-views growing up as a kid too. And I think it really does a great job of embodying the Attitude Era too, with all the names that was in that tournament and the stories that were told. So, Survivor Series '98.
It was,
All right,
it was a turning point.
It was, yeah, it really was too. Because I mean, now it's like you've had Austin's been on the top for pretty much the entire year, and you've had other names and faces kind of like put in there, but now it's like, okay, now he's got somebody who could really be like his arch rival and was with The Rock.
Mhm.
And you also too get Mankind, I think, to that next level as well, um, of being like a top tier guy. So I mean, it's like pretty much them along with Undertaker and Kane. Um, God, what is there you can't say about the Attitude Era? You know, everybody loves it. It's talked about it. And, hey, it's the Attitude Era.
It's
But I
true.
definitely think '98 was the best Survivor Series in the Attitude Era. Because I got to be honest, these last three we're going to talk about here to wrap up the show tonight, in the Attitude Era, not as good, not nearly as good. Um, we'll start with Survivor Series '99, and I'm not going to go into like details on all the matches, but remember, kids, if you really want to, you could always Wikipedia that shit, because this show gets two. But there are some elimination matchups that are so-so. But there is some single matches on this card that are pretty good. First one comes to mind. Another Survivor Series debut. It's kind of a recurring theme here. The first WWF matchup of Kurt Angle is on this show as he goes up against Sean Stasiak. And what's cool about it too is I like how Kurt gets on the mic because they're booing him, because this is in Detroit, by the way. And pretty much he's like, "You do not boo an Olympic gold medalist." So, yeah, whatever. The big storyline, though, B-roll on this show was the main event was a triple threat for the WWF title. Triple H defending against Stone Cold and The Rock. But Austin was actually injured at the time and had to have some surgery done, so they had to write him off. So this is the infamous storyline where he was run down by a car and hit by a car, and pretty much would be out for about a year afterwards. So when you get to the main event, you pretty much, it's still a triple threat, but you don't know who the third man is going to be. And then all of a sudden, the music hits, and you hear, "Well, it's a big show," because the Big Show is placed in there in the main event. Now, the Big Show at the time was in a feud with the Big Boss Man, and storyline wise, the Big Show had just lost his father
Mhm.
in a very what was supposed to be a sad but a downright comical moment, with the Big Boss Man breaking up the funeral procession and taking his cop car and tying it up the Big Show's father's casket and dragging the casket off, because this is the WWF in 1999. We're gonna do shit like this. Seriously though, the Big Boss Man heel character from that era, like, I love that Big Boss Man. Like, just one of the most downright evil characters. You think about it, like, breaks up a funeral, drags off the Big Boss Man or the Big Show's dad, ends up somehow getting a hold of Al Snow's dog and feeding him to him, but he doesn't know he's eating his dog. I mean, it doesn't get more evil than that. I mean, when WWE was doing that evil documentary on Peacock, they should have had an episode on the Big Boss Man from '99. Shit,
I
man.
agree.
So the Big Show gets inserted in the main event and actually ends up winning it and wins his first WWF title. Now, he would have a short run, but still, though, winning the WWF title, especially at this time frame, is huge. When you have such heavy hitters like Triple H, like The Rock, like Stone Cold, The Undertaker, Kane, and so on. But yeah, Survivor Series '99, not as great of a show. You've got some stuff in there, but it's I don't know. To me, it's not that. I didn't think it was a great one. Was there any matches on that show, Bryan, that that stuck out to you, or you really liked, or didn't like, or it was just kind of meh?
No, this is when they started to get away from Survivor Series.
Yeah, I agree, and I wasn't a fan of that. And the teams that year too they had sucked, man. Like this was a weird team: Val Venus, Gangrel, Steve Blackman, and um, Mark Henry. It's like I don't
They
know
took
why
away the
they're on it.
meaning of Survivor Series.
Yeah, there wasn't really any story. It's just like let's randomly put them together. And oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna put you against. It was like they literally did like auto random generator like you would on a video game because it's like okay, we're gonna put you against the Mean Street Posse and the British Bulldog because why the hell not?
Yeah.
So two more to go here, fellas. All right, Survivor Series 2000. And this is another one where it really got away from Survivor Series elimination matches. You did have there was a couple on this show, but the real big thing with this Survivor Series that was advertised was the triple main event. They were billing it. So in this triple main event, you have first The Rock against Rikishi because I did it for The Rock. I did it for the people. So storyline wise, here's what's going on, B-roll. So essentially, remember a year ago when Stone Cold got hit by a car? Well, we come to find out apparently Rikishi was the driver and he did it because of The Rock. So they turned Rikishi as a heel, and it did not work in my opinion. It did not work with him being like he kind of got a cool theme song out of it, but
He was a bad,
I'm a
bad
bad
man.
man, but it's still he's still like the dancing thong wearing Rikishi. It just I don't know, it just didn't work for me. So him and The Rock had a matchup. Rock picking up the win.
So was
W
this the original like who's the head of the table matchup?
No, I don't think I would go that far. They were part of the family, but I wouldn't say head of the table was on the line in that matchup. So from there you go into the WWF title on the line. Kurt Angle defending against the Undertaker, and this was a decent matchup. And what was shocking is Kurt Angle would end up retaining against the Dead Man, the biker, if you will. So, but your main event was Stone Cold Steve Austin against Triple H in a no DQ match. And it did end up finding out, even though Rikishi was the driver, Triple H was the one that hired him. Shocking. Um, the one thing I remember about this one that was the main event finish, it was just goofy as shit. Like they end up fighting outside, and Triple H is trying to get away in his car, and Stone Cold gets um, he gets like a forklift or something, and he ends up lifting up the car all the way up in the air, and then he drops the car, and supposedly Triple H is in it, and that's like the finish of the show, pretty much. Just a shitty Survivor Series, in my opinion. All right, last Survivor Series from the Attitude Era. It's got to be a good one, right? Define good. Survivor Series 2001. And the big thing about this Survivor Series was it was the Alliance against the WWF in a winner take all match. So whoever won this was going to go on and do business, and the other one was going out of business. So I think you probably already know who the hell wins this one, B roll. So pretty much you have uh, you also have unification matches on this show. So they unified the U.S. and Intercontinental title. They unified the tag team titles, and they end up having a woman's six-pack challenge to declare a new women's champion. There's also a quote unquote immunity battle royal where whoever wins, regardless of if they're at the Alliance or the WWF, they get their jobs guaranteed for a year. There is a good matchup on here, a cage matchup between the Dudleys and the Hardys for the unification match for the tag titles. That's pretty good. But the main event, 5-on-5. You got Team WWF led by The Rock, along with Chris Jericho, The Undertaker, Kane, and The Big Show. And they're going up against the Alliance, led by Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, Rob Van Dam, Booker T, and Shane O'Mac himself, Shane McMahon. And just with this one, man, it just like the biggest thing for me is like I never really got into the alliance thing just because it was like there was so many other matchups you wanted to see. Like that truly wasn't WCW, ECW. So it just wasn't as believable. And like two, it was just weird. Like, well, why the hell is Stone Cold and Kurt Angle on like WCW's team? You know, it just like they had to shift some star power over there. Just for me, it just I never got into that storyline. Of course, The Rock would be the sole survivor, and thus Team WWF would go on and win. But really, that was like the last Survivor Series, and really, like in my opinion, I really feel like the last great show of the Attitude Era was WrestleMania 17, and I
Mhm.
kind of look at it like that's when the Attitude Era ended. But I think a lot of people will say this is kind of the end of the Attitude Era because really from here you just kind of go right into the Ruthless Aggression Era.
Mhm.
But I mean, I don't know this Survivor Series, like the main event, like outside the storyline, like the matchup's good. It's a good Survivor Series matchup, but um, I don't know. This was another one I just could not get into. So it is what it
Because all the
is.
big money contracts they were sitting out. Everybody you wanted to see was riding out.
Yeah, and the thing is, what was so frustrating is, you talk a year later or less, you finally get like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and Hulk Hogan and Goldberg and all these guys from
Mm-hmm.
WCW coming in. So, I mean, if you had had that, if that was the Alliance, those guys on there, oh man, it would have been a different story. But
Yeah.
Mhm.
hey, it is what it is. So,
Mm-hmm.
man, we went balls deep on Survivor Series tonight. But the crazy thing is, there's so many more Survivor Series to
Mhm.
cover. But that's what we're going to do next week here on Learning the Ropes, where we're
Mm-hmm.
going to go right. We're going to pick right back up from Survivor Series '02, and then talk about them all up until the current Survivor Series, which is just around the corner here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as
And
always, we always like to close out on a note. I'm getting tongue tied. We always like to close out with a little bit of a plug-a-palooza.
that is right. In DDO, and we will make this quick because it is getting late.
Hey, real quick
Uh,
though, real quick
yeah.
before we get into that, Brian, what do you got going on this week on your YouTube channel?
Tomorrow we release our episode with Paul Burchell. Paul has never done a podcast appearance, so this is an exclusive.
Nice.
And then this upcoming Friday, we are talking with Jackson Black. Jackson Black is an independent wrestler out of the Tennessee area, and we'll be doing some stuff on Knoxville television down there on his show that he has down there. And then we will be filming a bunch of stuff. Brian Kendrick, I think
Sweet.
the Mountie, Tugboat, Rock and Robin, all kinds of stuff. So
You got
it
some
is a
great
busy week.
ones. You got some great ones coming up this week, man. I can't wait to see those. Oh, especially the Mountie. Oh man, because he always gets his man. So that's pretty cool, man. You got a lot of good stuff. You guys are gonna go check that out. And seriously, if you haven't done so, go follow Developmentally Speaking over on their YouTube channel and follow them on their TikTok as well. You guys, they got some amazing content. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. B-roll. As
no,
always,
you are good. You are good, good sir. And as Matt Ward says here, bottoms up, Mr. B-roll. It's closing time.
closing time.
Not doing a shot tonight, but I did finish off the Broken Skull American.
You had a
Lager.
beer. I had another beer. I had another beer. So you had 3. Okay.
I did have 3. There you go. But we'd like to thank you all for joining us and sticking through us with tonight. We went over a little bit tonight, but that's okay. That's okay in DDO. You found us over here on the Panda Wrestling Company Twitch channel. Like we just saw that Dice and Dishes just dropped a follow. So there you go. We definitely appreciate that. We are sponsored each and every week by a Rootless Coffee. You got to point the other way. It's opposite. There you go. All right.
It's over here on my screen.
And you know it is a
damn
fine cup of coffee indeed. Use code Panda Coffee to save 15% off all non-collabs. You can even use that on the merch. So there you go. Christmas is coming. Get those coffee lovers out there some Rootless coffee. And
yes, watch Tuesdays for Wrestling with Toxicity.
Yes, because over here at the Panda Wrestling Company, we have something for you 7 days a week. So you're going to want to make sure you drop a follow, or as we like to say, if you have Prime, Amazon Prime, you can subscribe for free. All you
And
got
hey,
to
real
do,
quick, we're real happy to have Hambone with us now on Sunday nights. That's exciting that those guys are going to be with us here on Sunday nights too.
yes, that is very very exciting indeed. It's all the more reason to tune in and watch. Um, what do we have going on Cold TV this week, XLJ?
Absolutely, sir. So we got a fun, action-packed week. A lot of wrestling content coming to you this week. So on Wednesday, God willing, you're gonna see our SmackDown Live vlog. As long as Papa H doesn't make us take it down. But no, Wednesday will be our SmackDown Live vlog where Mr. B-Roll and myself got to check out SmackDown Live here in Indianapolis this past week. On Thursday, you can catch a replay of our show here, Learning the Ropes. And on Friday will be our full gear prediction show. That's right, folks, because we are only 6 days away from AEW's full gear. It's crazy to think. So that's what's in store for Cole TV this week.
Going to be a fun week over on Cold TV as well. And we would be naive to not to mention that we do have some Cold TV merch, some Learning the Ropes merch, as XLJ, the OG, is wearing there as well. Also, currently, we are doing a fundraiser for the We Are Wrestle Talk. Percentage of all of these shirt sales will be going directly to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So definitely going over to Sweet Dollface Creations and get yourself either some merch, our merch, or We Are Wrestle Talk shirt as well. And XLJ, I did tell you in the private chat earlier that I had one special thing that I wanted to cover.
Yeah, what's that special announcement?
So, you may also know that the We Are Wrestle Talk thing, it's not just about the shirts though, right? It's a movement, and we are trying to get one of our good friends to AEW Dynamite in January. And we all know Michael. His name is Michael. He is a huge wrestling fan and hasn't had very many opportunities to be able to see wrestling live because the promotions just don't go out to. He lives in Washington State. They don't go out there too often. So we are currently also trying to raise money for him.
Yep.
You can donate to his Cash App. I believe it is.
I think it's $Michael 1992, or no,
Okay.
Wheels Wheels 1992, right?
Yep, that sounds right.
Yes.
So I decided to do a little bit of a giveaway, and this is the first time I'm announcing this.
Ooh.
Yeah, I haven't even told you this.
Breaking news.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, I have 3 prizes. All you have to do is donate $5 to be entered to win. $5
All right.
to Michael's Cash App. One lucky winner will get this. You can't really see it. There,
Looks like Britt Baker, isn't it?
It's a Britt Baker from the AEW cards. It is a numbered card. It is 43 out of 50. So it's a 43 out of 50. Also, we're going to give away a Brian Cage autograph card.
There you go.
The Machine
The
himself.
Machine.
And
The man who decimated your boy this past Friday. I'm sorry, I had to throw that out there.
Shut up. And last but certainly not least, the TNT champion himself, Wardlow. This is a in-ring gear card. So we'll be giving away 3 prizes. All you gotta do is donate $5. I'll put a TikTok about this tomorrow as well. But
cool. That's awesome,
$5,
man.
$5 minimum, and you get a pretty cool card. So I think that's a pretty good deal.
Sounds like a deal to me. And plus, you're helping out our good friend Michael. And y'all know him if you follow him on Wrestle Talk. You know he's a super good dude. I mean, I appreciate all the comments from me. People say like, "Oh, the professor of wrestling and stuff." But if I'm that, this guy's like the thesaurus. I mean, he knows it all. Seriously. So, super good dude, super nice guy. He's one of us. He's our brother. We got to get him to Dynamite there in January. So,
It's a good thing you're doing.
thanks. Yeah, yeah. He's a good cat.
And then, as we mentioned earlier as well, please go give our good friends at Developmentally Speaking a follow over on the YouTube and on the TikTok. It was in the comments earlier. It's late. I'm not going to put it in the comments again, but
Lazy. No, it's all good.
literally, if you go to YouTube and you search Developmentally Speaking, you find them pretty much right away. So
Yeah.
go give them a follow. Go give them a follow. Great content, and as you heard just a little bit ago, lots more exciting content coming. So
Awesome times ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on again, man. We had a blast having you on here, and it was just great doing a deep dive here on the Survivor Series. But we'd love to have you back on again. Maybe we can get your partner in crime, Mr. Mortimer Blankenship, to join us next time too, if his schedule. I know he's a busy man with all of his ongoing things. But yeah, we'd love to have you both on again, man.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, we appreciate you staying up late with us here tonight on Learning the Ropes. That's going to wrap it up for our episode tonight. Hope you join us next week where we will finish up our talk and discussion on the Survivor Series. And everybody, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Get to bed because, hey, Monday is upon us. You got a case of the Mondays, but it's okay.
Yep.
You got to join us tonight. So.
And speaking of Monday, don't forget to tune in to Raw with Russell tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock to 11 p.m. So there you have it, folks. Well, thank you all again. Thank you to our guest, Bryan, for joining us here tonight. We hope you've all enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week on a brand new episode of Learning the Ropes.